What's going on, guys? Teddy Baldassarre from teddybaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where we take a deeper dive into looking at watches available for purchase on my website, authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, and we're looking at a cool one today. One of my favorite releases from Tissot in the past, say, 5 years with the Tissot Gentleman Powermatic 80 Silicium. So as always, what we're gonna be doing in this video, doing a deep dive review of this piece. At the end, going to be looking at some things to consider both on the positive and negative side of things. And then all the links, relevant links, will be in the description down below if you do want more information, as well as want to purchase this watch. Guys, let's jump into the video. First, looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 40 millimeters, thickness of 11.5 millimeters, lug width of 21 millimeters, lug to lug of 48 millimeters, water resistance of 100 meters. Movement is a Powermatic 80 with a silicone hairspring. Crystal is sapphire. Crown, we have a push-pull crown, and then price $775 on the bracelet. But if you do put in promo code GENTLEMAN at checkout, you get a free strap up to $50 with the purchase of this watch. Now, looking back at some of the more popular videos of this year, one of the leading ones was the review of the Tissot Gentleman Blue Dial. Positioned that video as looking at a watch that was probably one of the best options for an everyday timepiece under $1,000, and I think that remains true. The video was very well received, had a ton of views, and I think it was not by accident. I think people really just saw what this watch was providing in terms of a value standpoint. And Tissot overall usually doing this better than pretty much any other Swiss brand out there, at least at that entry-level position. The variant that we have here is of that same model family, with this one coming in a black dial. Now, starting with this watch on the wrist, why partly this watch was probably very appealing to many people was its case size. It's 40 millimeters. It does lean sporty in some directions, but overall provides quite a bit of variety in terms of the situations that it can be plugged into. When you factor in the lug-to-lug distance at 48 millimeters, it is more of a sporty wear, but when you tie in the rest of the dial elements and I would say a more dressed up type of finish, it does lend to substantial versatility. Looking at the case, you have a mixing of brushing on the front of the lugs and polishing on that larger, thicker bezel, which on the subject of wearability is going to assist in that area, at least from the optic standpoint, because it is going to make that dial appear a bit smaller here, and making this watch wear probably similar to a 39-40 millimeter, pretty true to what the dimensions are putting forward here. This mixing of the surface treatments on the case here of the stainless steel case is going to offer a bit of flash without becoming overly ostentatious and providing a lot of versatility again. I think that's going to be the word of the day here for this watch. This mixing of polishing and brushing continues with the bracelet here, which is going to have a high polished center link and brushed outer links on this 3-link style. It is an okay bracelet. I don't think you're paying too much of a premium here for it, but in terms of whether or not you want to go for it, it really is up to you. It drapes to the wrist fairly well, but it is a bit stiff when you do bend your wrist. It meets at a 2-button release clasp on the underside, which is going to lock in place with nice security, but is one of the probably downsides of this piece. I do think it is better than the world of Seiko watches and other counterparts in this price range. It just all comes down to expectation and what you want to go for. With the 21 millimeter lug width, that is another thing to consider here, and probably the biggest downside of this piece, because that element of versatility commonly being reiterated throughout this review so far, that is one area where that is not taking place. I do have a variety of 21 millimeter straps on my site, and you can get that for free if you do add it to your cart with that promo code. But this odd number lug width, something to at least have on the radar if you are looking in the direction of the Gentleman. At the 3 o'clock side of the case, we do have a crown here. It's going to operate in traditional fashion. It is not a screw down, but it does have 100 meters of water resistance, so you're getting some nice security and flexibility with that water resistance rating. So it's going to operate typical fashion, hand winding at the first position, changing the date at the second position, and then changing the time at the farthest out point while stopping the second hand in the process, so hacking seconds here. For the glass, we have a sapphire crystal that has an ever so slight dome and meets the slanted bezel nicely. Looking within, we have a striking black dial with a slightly reflective effect. With the open real estate at the 12 o'clock, we have the writing of Tissot and the year of their founding in 1853. Moving to the 6th, the writing of Powermatic Silicium, alluding to the caliber within and the inclusion of the silicone hairspring. More on that in a bit. And at the 3, a well-executed date window outlined in a stainless steel frame. At the center of the dial, we have a sword-style handset with a traditional second hand and the hour and minute hand containing superluminova, matching the plots of lume along the outside of the dial nestled beneath the applied hour indices. And I think on the subject of the indices, it is a big contributing factor, I think, to making this watch pop a bit more. You had the polished texture of the bezel, you're seeing a little bit of that with the polished finishing on the side of these indices and having that slanted edge effect, which is going to work really well with complementing and providing a bit more flash to this black dial, especially as you rotate this one underneath the light. Flipping the gentleman over, we have view of the movement within with this Powermatic 80. The finishing on this one is pretty straightforward. You get a custom rotor signed with Tissot's logo, also with getting this wave pattern across that rotor. But really the notable features are the silicone hairspring as well as the power reserve on here. So this is reworking an ETA 2824, taking that 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate and dropping it down to 21,600 vibrations per hour or 3 hertz to maximize the energy stored by that coiled mainspring to stretch that power reserve to 80 hours. Also, next to the balance here, you're going to notice a couple things. One is there's no regulator pins. This one does have some pretty nice regulation out of the box from Tissot, going to be ticking in the single digits a day. And then also is going to feature that small SI near the balance, which is going to indicate that silicone hairspring is present here, which is going to help in resistance against shock, temperature changes, and ensuring more consistent oscillation when being confronted with magnetic fields. In short, a set it and forget it type of movement with a lengthy power reserve with some added spec to go on top of that. Now, when looking at everyday watches, especially under the $1,000 price range, I think we many times have the tendency of just repeating the same watches as recommendations over and over again, and I'm probably guilty as charged here. But in a lot of cases, there's a truth behind that because there are those fixtures in watchmaking that are just great ways or gateways into this world as a great place to start a collection. When I saw this Tissot gentleman for the first time, I saw it as one of those watches that could be thrown into that conversation, as a watch that could reside within the pantheon of entry-level or say more attainable, affordable, everyday watches under $1,000. Yes, the bracelet and the lug width are certainly points of improvement for the future, but in terms of what this watch can tackle, 100 meters of water resistance, reliable movement with a lengthy power reserve, silicone hairspring, versatile looks, well-finished indices on the front of the dial from a brand that is probably one of the best entry doors in the world of Swiss watchmaking, I think it makes a ton of sense, and there's, I think, reason behind why that video that I did earlier this year was so popular and why this watch is now on a short list of select watches under $1,000 that I would recommend for being an everyday watch to certainly consider. All right, guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. That's all a big help. Really would appreciate it. In addition, if you are interested in this watch, links in the description. Full authorized dealer of all the watches that we carry, including Tissot watches, full factory warranty, TeddyBaldassarre.com, one of the most trusted places to buy a watch online. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.